How are you guys? Here it's here at 69 USD SNG from SmartSpin team, and I want to show you our League Finder tool. What can you do with it? What are the advantages? And yeah, it's pretty useful application. So you can create the report. I'll name it stars last 2K games. Plus 2K flush, and simply I will upload the reports I just exported from PokerTracker, based on which the League Finder will be created. As you can see, I'm picking these versus fish reg personal results reports. And based on the data gathered from PokerTracker, we will see stats that will help us to notice where are some potential leaks, improvements in our game, what are the stats that we should double check in our analysis. We'll see win rates split by the opponents that we selected, and recommendations when it comes to videos. So here, as you can see, we got a split for our win rate, and our strategy depends on our opponents. So you see lots of colors. As you can see in the legend, basically they are split into green and red, depends if the frequency stat falls more into passive or aggressive, fight or lose area, and therefore you can notice some deviations in your strategy. Starting from the top, for example, you get a first general stat which shows me the red stat, even with exclamation mark, which is call versus river race with over 100% size with a topper or worse. So we must expect our opponent to bluff in order to make such a call. As you can see, if you click on it, you can see recommended frequency that's expected not to be above the limit. Usually you will get more or less detailed example of why it's worth taking a deeper look on particular stat. In some cases, in some situations you'll have a link to a video. In some situations you will have a bit bigger description of what is worth taking into consideration. As you can see, League Finder is both designed for high stakes and low stakes players, because the most important is to measure your statistics. Your approach depends on the opponent. So for example, here, if I want only to see my stats versus regs, the most important will be my GPV per hand that I achieve. Here, the chips per hand are taken from the report versus reg, which takes into account all of the hands I played versus players I selected as regs. As you can see, the stats of calling versus raises comes mainly from these situations versus regs, while versus fish, my call versus river raise is 0, versus regs is 19 in that case, and it exceeds a little bit the recommended range for sure, as it's as it exceeds a little bit. It might be a matter of variance, something that we should take into consideration. Doesn't mean that we necessarily have to expect that this is wrong. This is an information to take a deeper look. As you can see on this sample size, where we have 3,400 heads-ups tournaments with regs, where the most important is GPV per hand, we see that while heads-up big blind minus 0.1 is pretty okay, heads-up small blind could be definitely improved here, even up to 2 chips per hand. So definitely, if I want to prioritize my learning, my improving process, it should be heads up small blind. Keep that in mind that obviously 3.5K tournaments versus regs is not ultimate. It's not a sample size that would definitely show exact numbers, but definitely shows some sort of tendency. The bigger sample size you upload, the more we can get from it. League Finder is also programmed in a way that if there are not enough opportunities to measure the results, for example, in that case, the general GPV, which is split to facing 3-bets, facing open shafts, depends on stack sizes. If there are not enough situations, it won't show the result. Here, as many games are flash games, and obviously the tendency of population, people open shaft way more frequently on shallow stacks, the result appears with the reference point available, while for others it don't appear. In these situations, I think I said the minimum number of situations has to exceed 500 or 1,000 to show the results. We see also that big blind versus button GPV drops a lot. That we have opportunity to improve it. So these should be two situations to focus in the first place. Then we can proceed to our frequencies and simply see more details. Maybe we can see something in the deviations. There are plenty of colors, and you have an option to select display only big mistakes button, which will hide mistakes that are slight deviations from the set reference point. In that case, it will be up to 5% points from recommended reference point. So here in my game, I can notice some extremes. Even though I was programming it, I set some frequencies. I can see that there are definitely some tendencies that that I could take into consideration when it comes to my in position strategy. Because as you can see, there are some extremes related to heads up big blind as well. But as long as the results are good, and I shouldn't be concerned about it that much. Also, obviously, the frequencies, the strategy depends exclusively on the opponent, and the higher stakes you play, the more you play against particular extreme opponents. While if you play mid stakes or low stakes, your opponents are different, and obviously we should focus more on the average tendencies of your opponents. So when it comes to my heads up small blind extremes, as you can see, my c-bet with medium pair and bottom pair exceeds by 7% to the compared to the frequency of bets I recommend, and the second battle exceeds by 7% as well. So this could be something that I might take into consideration if am I sure that my c-betting and battling situations are made in good situations. Another situation is another situation that you can see related to heads up small blind. In my case, would be one bet with top pair or better. The one bet applies both to in position and out of position situations. As you can see, the out of position bet frequency in my case is pretty low, but we are not worried about out of position. The question is, am I surely value betting frequently enough with in position? So this is something I could review by myself. We can scroll down to heads up small blind exclusively. C-betting frequency with our 50%. So with so versus regs only, that's definitely not extremely low stat. Definitely these reference points are not perfect. I'm regularly adjusting them and making the league finder tool more accessible. Raise versus dunk bet, it doesn't appear that frequently as regs don't dunk bet it too often. Versus fish is more important. So here in that exact situation, we cannot see any extreme mistakes. We can unselect now big mistakes. Maybe we can see some details in the small mistakes. So bluffing frequency on paired board is pretty small, and it definitely drops. So this could be this could be an area to investigate further, because might be that I'm just not frequently bluffing in position these hands. Generally, the bigger sample size we have, the more details we can see of our EV split it into our initial hand strength, like for example, draw on the flop, bottom pair, medium pair, top pair or better, or limp c bet opportunity with air. But as I told you at the beginning, with the small sample sizes, the results are not showing, simply not to give you numbers that in fact will be mainly a variance. The same with splitting pre-flop stack sizes and also pre-flop range by splitting it into top 33%, medium 33%, and bottom 33%. For example, I can show you in a minute how would it look like if we upload bigger database. The same analysis of stats you can find for every other individual position, and you can draw conclusions that you would like to draw. The same for fish and overall. Here, as you can see, the sample size versus fish is not too high. At the same time, the results are not too great. This is also because for sure the fish in high stakes player pool usually is a reg that it's just unknown for me. So I care more about being sure that my reg list is well updated. So at least these guys that I know that they are good, I'm improving my game versus regs. And anyway, the bigger sample size I get versus fish, I try to adjust individually. But yeah, it's pretty important as well. So I'll give you the I'll show you the example how would it look like on the bigger sample size. Let's say here, this is just for regs and fish, and this is how this heads up small blind, heads up big blind split depends on your flop hand strength, and depends on some other splits like probing opportunity for heads up big blind or stack size split versus min raise. So again, here colors depends if it's blue or yellow. It shows if the result is above the expected or below the expected. Yellow is represents that the number could be higher. Obviously, our results will depend on our rig ratio. That's why I'm meanwhile of improving the league finder to also change the GPV per game reference point to GPV per hand versus particular opponent based on the factors that are mentioned here, because there will be way better because we will check the results versus particular opponents, and this is the most important factor if we play versus competent player or incompetent player. Definitely, we can see that my heads up small blind strategy with the bottom range achieves good results. They are above the average. My draw and bottom pair strategy sounds pretty cool. On this sample size, there is no remark about too high c-bet or barrel frequency, though it's a bit older upload of the bigger sample size. However, it's still worth having these different periods as a good comparison for further research, for example, with our reports. Anyway, we see that the biggest drop appears in top range below 16 dB, right? And at the same time, we see that topper on the flop also achieves pretty poor results. And generally, this topper results are deviating a lot, and there's a great room for improvement where we can maximize value from our top range. So definitely, this should be the region where I could give a second look and second thought for analyzing my opponents a bit better from the point of view, focusing on heads up small blind with the top range and topper or better on the flop, how to maximize my win rate, right? So so using League Finder will help you to prioritize your learning process, to make sure that instead of reviewing random hands where you have some draws, bottom pairs, or some bottom range, which indeed performs pretty good in my case, I can focus on areas that shows that I don't make as much profit as I could. That way you can work smarter, not harder. You can adjust your learning process based on your leagues and areas where you can improve your results the most. So yeah, this is the League Finder tool. I hope you liked it and you cannot wait to use it in your case and then simply improve your results. Yeah, with it. Thank you guys for watching, and kisses.